In this episode of Detroit Performs, a hip-hop artist has an inspiring message. A musician hosts an ongoing live music series at his records and bookstore. And musicians combine talent to get a new sound. It's all ahead on this edition of Detroit Performs.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to Detroit Performs. I'm your host, DJ Oliver, and today I'm at Galerie Camille, located in Midtown Detroit. This gallery curates vintage and contemporary art. Now, let's delve into our first segment. Nique Love Rhodes is a socially conscious hip-hop artist ready to take the world by storm with her inspiring lyrics and catchy beats. Here she is in action.
I woke up this morning, a lot on my mind. If we gotta change the world, it's gotta start with that.
It's the greatest thing ever, just to be able to take an idea, create it, and have people like rock to your music.
Let's make love our number one mission, cause love heals all, so let's get to the healing, real love.
I'm born and raised in Detroit all my life. Grew up on the west side. Hip-hop, it was really like a really positive outlet for me. It's just getting out those emotions and just being creative. Coming up, like I had a lot of like issues within the home, like family. My mom gave me a notebook. I specifically remember her giving me a notebook, and she told me anything that you think or feel, write it down. And so probably I would say since like 7, I would just write poems and things like that. And then I was heavily involved in my church at the time, and we had a youth explosion. So it's like where different teens in the community, they would come and they would like showcase their talents. And so I did a poem, and somebody was like, yo, it sounds like you're rapping, you should try to start rapping.
Make my vision plain, write it down, focus on it, mission possible right now.
The history of hip hop is something that I grew up on, but I never really thought about it until somebody approached me and was like, you should try to rap, and it just came natural to me.
Dream chaser, realize dreams my way, dream chaser.
We are in the Hive rehearsal studios. It's the rehearsal space for me and my band. So we come here, we jam, we rehearse for upcoming shows. I'll come here occasionally and like write and rehearse on different songs that I'm working on.
My job don't got me going anywhere no time soon. Don't like my major, I'm just trying to get up out of school.
The first stereotype that I always get is people don't even expect me to rap. The first thing people say, oh, you sing? And I'm like, no, I don't sing. And so they say, well, what do you do? And I'm like, I rap. And they're like, oh, really? You don't look like a rapper. As soon as like I start performing, they're like, oh, I didn't expect that. I think the second thing that is a misconception we have of the hypersexualized female hip hop artists that get a lot of mainstream appeal. And I'm definitely like the opposite of that. And I do it really almost like intentionally sometimes to really show like there's different facets of what a woman in hip hop looks like. And so I try to be that positive, socially conscious, and bring like a balance to what's perceived as what is a female hip hop artist. I really just try to use music as a tool to like uplift people. I think now more than ever people need to be inspired in some way. Peace, love, and revolution, those are like my key words. I definitely choose also to shed light on what's going on like socially in a creative way. Really just getting people to think about situations differently.
I'm riding around listening to the ghosts of the past, wondering what if their lives would have lasted. I'm talking Michael, Whitney, Aaliyah, Left Eye, Pac, Biggie, Marley, Hendrix, Cobain.
I come from the school of like Bob Marley and people like that who use music as a tool to push for social change and enlighten people and uplift people. And I think that's just needed now. Like, we see the same issues that we saw back in the 50s and 60s, and music was the kind of the driver. Even if you look at like what's going on like politically, a lot of people are like, you know, anti-establishment. We want change and we want, you know, equality, and it's so many issues that are kind of like dominating right now. And I think self-reflection and just like having people be honest with themselves is the solution. You look at even the issue of like racism. That starts like you learn it and then you act it out, and it's your own personal, you know, biases and prejudice against people. That starts internally. They can change whatever laws, but as long as people have a heart like that to look at somebody and make judgments off of somebody, laws can change, but people's hearts have to change.
Just wanna be great, run into my dreams, hope I don't be late, nah.
Hip hop is improvisation, is rooted in that. And so for me, when I'm creating songs, typically I would start with a concept in mind. So I may say, I want to write about this topic, and then I'll connect with the producer I work with, and so they'll just pull up beats, and whatever connects with me at the time, now it's like, okay, I like that beat. I was actually just sitting with my keyboard player, Barry, and he was just like playing beats, and if I hear something, I'm like, okay, I know I can write to that. It's very weird because there's no like ABC formula. It's literally like the words will just come to me.
God gave me back in May of '88. 20-something years later, I'm up at the plate and
I think as an artist, you're almost obligated to speak for other people because people are listening to your work and people are consuming your work. So they have to have something that they can relate to. I just wrote a song about Detroit, the water crisis here. Sparked that. The song I have called Rise Up is like 3 different stories in one song.
I know there's more to life than this. Rise up, where I'm at ain't good enough. Rise up.
Then I put some of my own personal life experiences, and so I really pull information and inspiration from everywhere.
Yo, we gotta stop, take a look inside ourselves, search inside our hearts. Lack of love for self leaves little for the people. Don't hate your fellow man, hate the system that teach you. Take somebody.
My band is awesome. It's called the NLR Experience. I say we're a hip-hop fusion band because it's hip-hop, but we mix a lot of jazz in there. We mix some funk. There's some elements of rock in there, so it's pretty cool. Because now you're not only working with like yourself and just writing the songs, but you're bringing songs to musicians who can then interpret the songs in their own way musically, and so they add different flavor to it.
Love heals all.
I have this concept that everyone is a revolutionary, whether it's, you know, your personal life, your community, and just really being empowered to do that, to, you know, to be somebody that's gonna like stand up for the right thing and do the right thing and be proud of that, and to be a person that, you know, lives a life of passion and just going for your goals. To see us eventually like be touring and making a living off of that, that's for sure a goal. And to just keep making music and keep encouraging people and inspiring people in any way through music, that's really the ultimate goal.
Love heals all.
You can learn more about Nique Love Rhodes on DetroitPerforms.org. Lo and Behold Records sells records, books, vintage clothing, and art. But retail occasionally takes a back seat to the owner's goals of being a musician, spreading knowledge of Detroit music, and hosting an ongoing traditional live music series.
I couldn't begin to describe this place. It's a work in progress, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty mixed market. I guess it's a mixed crowd that comes in. Sometimes it might just be like young kids who just got a record player for the first time, or it might be an older lady that is just reminiscing about 45s she had as a kid. Might be a DJ coming in and looking for, you know, rare, hard to find soul or garage. But also it could just be somebody who just never got rid of the record player and is still actively pursuing collecting wax. Old, young, whatever. I gotta feed the cat. Folk Blues Night is a monthly traditional music party we have at the shop here. Not your regular coffee house vibe. So it's more of like an old time music night. Now I record them here at the shop. Every month I kind of pull out the best couple performances of the night and then I throw them in a pool. And over the course of a few months that pool gets a little thicker and makes up a volume. And that volume gets first pressed to cassette tape and then eventually pressed to LP.
I'm a free little bird as I can be, as I can be. I'm a free little bird as I can be. Won't build me a nest high up in a willow tree, so those bad boys never bother me.
We had a fundraiser the other night. It was for our Folk Blues Night series. So we were awarded a grant to press more of our series on wax, but the grant is one where you have to match it. So so we had to come up with the bread before we get the bread, essentially. The Detroit Pleasure Society, which is a 7-piece traditional Dixie jazz group around town that I play in. And I just joined the band a couple months ago, and initially we got to talking about just recording a record together, but me just recording them, and then through that I ended up joining the band. You know, people come from all over, they hear about it, and it's got its own little following, you know. But also there's a core group of just folks in the neighborhood that come out for it, which has been awesome since, you know, they've been supporting it from the beginning. There was a time when we were doing this night and there was just 4 or 5 people here. And this last one was, you know, the fundraiser, but usually even the folk blues nights themselves are even more packed than it was the other night. It's usually crammed in here and you can't move. Our mayor, she comes out to the event every once in a while, and she really loves it. She loves the music that I play afterwards, and she loves the performers. And, you know, and the neighborhood's really supportive and kind of loving about it. They know, like, I mean, not just myself, but we all feel it's a positive thing in the neighborhood. So I tried to order just blank black jackets for the folk series, so I could do these paste over covers like Folkways used to do. But all the companies that I found in the States, they're either really, really expensive if they were nice sort of tooth, but even then there were still issues with them, like there was the insides were bleached, or there was something wrong with it where I don't want a bleached inside. I'd rather it be cardboard. It just seems more traditional. And you know, I'm not to say that this is just a terrible record. I mean, it is a terrible record, but at the same time, the justification of recycling it, I don't really like when people destroy good records. You know, for like notebooks or record, like bowls or whatever they do. But I don't mind anything being done to something that was already hopeless, whether it's because it's actually worth nothing, or in this case, the record and the record itself might be too beat up to sell, but the cover can be repurposed. But things like Perry Como records, I mean, I've never sold one in my life. I'm not a business person, but I'm a human, and that's what most of my business decisions are based off of. It's why I fail as a business, but it's also why I feel completely fulfilled in the work that I'm doing, and I feel like I'm doing something good.
You can learn more about Lo and Behold Records and all the artists we feature here today on DetroitPerforms.org. Now, let's check out some upcoming events happening in and around the D. To discover more events in Greater Detroit, visit ixity.com. Our next story is about what happens when classical and jazz musicians combine their talents to create a sound that borrows from the best of both worlds. Here are the 442s.
The hardest thing about categorizing this music, everybody likes categories. You know, you go to iTunes and you get your classical favorites and your top 40 favorites and your R&B favorites. The 442s are so hard to categorize because we delve into so many different areas of inspiration. And so we have not been able to find an easy moniker to kind of codify what we are. And that's tricky, and it's also freeing. It's hard when you're trying to explain to people what you do and who you are, but you just tell them, come in and hear us. Just listen to it, and that'll explain it.
The name the 442s comes from the standard tuning of A is 442 hertz, and that's what the oboist in the symphony plays to tune the orchestra before each concert, and that's kind of where we got that name. That felt good. Great, yeah. That felt really good. Because it's going to break down soon again anyway, so it can feel we're walking off the cliff a little bit. Well, I kind of am the utility man in the group. I do a little bit of everything. I do guitar and accordion and some percussion, some glockenspiel. I do all those things. I'm kind of running around on each tune, and I also compose most of the music. I'm trying to be open with it and let whatever wants to happen happen. I'm not trying to put any kind of labels or genres on the compositions. I'm not trying to be a classical composer. I'm not trying to be a jazz composer. I'm trying to use the players that I have available to me.
Adam writes so well for all of us, and each time we come to the rehearsal, he's brought a new element of things that he's wanted to try and see, and we'll discuss it and we'll talk about it, and he'll have us come over to his place individually sometimes in between rehearsals and say, well, what sits well and what works? Does this work? Is this good? What can you do here? Each opportunity that we have to kind of stretch ourselves as musicians kind of goes into the sauce, you know, it adds a complexity to us as musicians, whatever genre we're playing, classical, jazz, pop, whatever. My tastes my entire life have been really, really diverse, and I've always been a big fan of every kind of music you can imagine.
For Sean and I being a part of the symphony, you know, you're there and you're playing the notes and you're following the direction of the conductor and you're you're creating music in a way, but it's not your impetus. You're not the one who's calling the artistic shots. And when you have a group like this, we are that artistic impetus. We are the ones who are making the decisions and the voices, and we can change things. And I think for me, that's the most fun element of the 442s. Just getting a chance to play completely outside my comfort zone and outside the box. And one thing that's nice about the 442s is that not only do we have, through composed pieces that we are all playing together, what is written on the page, but we also have times where we're improvising as well. And so for Sean and I think from the symphony, that's really rare. Classical musicians are never encouraged or taught to improvise and to create music on the spot. And for us, I think it's a challenge, it's a thrill, it is nerve-wracking, it's scary, but it's so fun ultimately.
It's kind of like classical acting versus improvisational stuff like Saturday Night Live. We're very much interpretive in our classical lives, and here we're able to both be interpretive and improvisatory.
It's uncharted waters for me, but Bjorn and Sean have a very strong pop sensibility, and they understand the feel of jazz, so it was really quite easy. That made my job so much easier because they have an inherent feel for groove, and they understand that other styles. I mean, Sean knows more about pop jazz music and you name it than most people that I've ever met. And Bjorn is very open to pop music, and he's quite funky, as you hear on some of the songs.
Because it's kind of everybody's second pursuit, we get to be very picky about what we do and where we play and how we're presented. And I think that's a huge advantage for us. And I think everybody who comes to our concerts can feel that we're very happy with the situation, that we're playing in right there, and we don't have to do anything we don't want to do.
We start with what Adam writes, and it's a great product, and we want to perform it in the most convincing way and really take it to where it needs to be, which is something that we kind of get together ahead of time, and then we'll go in and just kind of let it fly in our concerts. And a lot of times things will happen in a show that never could have really happened in a rehearsal just because of the energy that we get from the audience.
I view this as another form of chamber music, and I'm very, very busy outside of Powell Hall, filling myself up with other things and other experiences. And I think we could all say that this group is another facet of our life where we can pour ourselves into something completely different. So it's not difficult to transition. It's just part of kind of being that complete musician and finding so many different areas that make up your whole.
And I think the more we do things and the more we push this and the further we can see this goes, the more we realize that it's all part of the same big sonic realm of what it is we all do.
You can learn more about the 442s on the Detroit Performs website. And that wraps it up for this edition of Detroit Performs. As always, for more arts and culture, head to DetroitPerforms.org, where you'll find featured videos, blogs, and information on upcoming arts events. Also, check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to thank Galerie Camille for having us out here today. Behind the gallery is Adnan Chirara's studio. Until next Tuesday, get out there and show the world how Detroit performs, y'all. I'm DJ Oliver. Thanks for watching, guys.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.